They believed it would take weeks. A show of force, a lesson, a quick correction on the edge of empire. Instead, thousands of British soldiers were cut down in a single afternoon. Not by cannons, not by rifles, by men with shields and spears. And London never forgot the humiliation. I tell stories history softened. Subscribe if this kind of truth matters to you.
By the late 1870s, Britain had absorbed much of southern Africa. Cape Colony was under imperial control. Boer territories were uneasy but watched closely. But one power remained intact: the Zulu Kingdom. Disciplined, centralized, feared. Under King Cetshwayo, the Zulu military system, refined decades earlier by Shaka, was still formidable. Age-based regiments, strict training, absolute loyalty. This was not a scattered tribal resistance. It was a nation organized for war, and that unsettled empire.
Britain did not invade immediately. It provoked. High Commissioner Sir Henry Bartle Frere delivered demands designed to be rejected. Disband the Zulu army. Accept British oversight. Reshape your sovereignty. The ultimatum wasn't negotiation. It was a pretext. When the Zulu king refused, Britain crossed the border into Zululand, confident, well-armed, certain of superiority. They thought it would be easy.
Then came Isandlwana, a rocky hill, open ground, a British camp left exposed. On that January morning in 1879, thousands of Zulu warriors advanced in a formation perfected over generations, the horns of the buffalo. They moved fast, silent, disciplined. British rifles misfired. Ammunition distribution faltered. Arrogance met coordination. By sunset, more than 1,000 British troops lay dead. It was one of the worst defeats ever inflicted on a modern European army by an indigenous African force. The empire that believed itself unstoppable had been stopped.
London was stunned. Newspapers were outraged. How could men with spears defeat an industrial empire? Reinforcements were sent immediately. This time, Britain would not underestimate. At Rorke's Drift, British soldiers held their ground. At Ulundi, months later, Gatling guns and artillery tore through Zulu ranks. The battlefield shifted. Technology regained its advantage. Power recalibrated. The Zulu capital burned. King Cetshwayo was captured and exiled. The kingdom was broken into smaller chiefdoms to prevent unity. Britain did not simply win, it dismantled. Historians debate the politics, the miscalculations, the imperial ambitions of Frere. But there is no dispute about this. The war began as aggression disguised as diplomacy, and it ended with the deliberate fragmentation of a sovereign state.
Britain won territory, but something else happened at Isandlwana. A myth cracked. The myth of effortless dominance. The myth of racial inevitability. The myth that empire could not bleed. The Zulu did not ultimately defeat Britain, but they forced it to fear them. And fear changes how power behaves. The Anglo-Zulu War reshaped southern Africa. The destruction of Zulu independence made future consolidation under colonial rule easier. The land would later be absorbed into structures that fed into the system that became apartheid. This was not an isolated war. It was a hinge, and once it turned, it did not turn back. Britain thought the war would be easy. It wasn't. The Zulu Kingdom fell, but its resistance carved itself into imperial memory, because power remembers humiliation longer than victory, and history remembers who stood their ground, even when they were eventually overrun. More stories like this? Subscribe.